Everybody. This is the PowerPoint for research and generalist social work practice. We are on week 2 of our semester, and I'm using this format as opposed to the PowerPoint with my voiceover to see if it allows students a little more flexibility with going back to parts maybe they missed, as that was a consideration that was brought up in class this last week. So we'll see how this works. Please give me some feedback when we rejoin live on Thursday this week. But until that time, please have out your participation sheet for week 2, which is September 7th through the 11th. And you'll notice that you have a first section which has 5 statements, and each one of the statements has at least one blank spot. And we'll go ahead and go through what the blank spots should be filled in with as I describe the concepts. We'll start with our first slide. In this slide, we're going to take a look at generalist social work practice in general. I have 2 pictures for you. On the left, we have Rosie the Riveter, and on the right, we have a toolbox. And what these pictures mean to me are the emphasis that generalist social work practice places on the one hand, client empowerment. So generalist social work practice stresses client empowerment on the one hand, and on the other hand, the toolbox represents eclectic knowledge base for professional problem solving. So we need to be able to have a lot of tools to work with in order to serve clients. We need to know more than just one thing. We need to be able to be flexible enough to do a number of things. And that's really what eclectic knowledge base for professional problem solving is really all about. Okay, next slide. Right here, you see a slide that has a lot of gauges. You got slides that show everything from poor to excellent in terms of service. I'm going to go ahead and say that we're gauging service in this particular case, or interventions. In the field of social work currently, there is a lot of pressure for fiscal accountability, and also at the same time effectiveness of services. So they're kind of going hand in hand. We want to make sure that the money we're paying for services, or whatever the entity who's paying for services is concerned with whether or not the money is of value and creating effective outcomes. And that's also what generalist social work, our code of ethics, is stating. So for fiscal accountability to be met, and also the ethical requirement of effective service, evidence-based practice has emerged in our field as being a standard. So evidence-based practice is really what we're using to try to answer for fiscal accountability and show some way in which our services are effective. For this next slide, we're taking a look at a concept that's a little less known in the United States, but a little more known in the world over. It's the concept of participatory action research. So what is participatory action research? It is a form of research in which we utilize the participants as collaborators of the design and focus of what the outcome should be for research. In other words, it's the participants who are telling us what's most important to get out of the research. For the longest time, we had a model, and we still do in many places, where the researcher is in charge of designing all of the research, and the participations are merely the subjects. They're not really involved with the creation of the research itself. That's something that is beginning to change in different areas, and in social work, we tend to embrace this notion that if participants, who are frequently our clients, are also involved with the research project, that they can help direct what kinds of outcomes are important for them, what kind of studies should be done, what empowers them or helps them. So participatory action research is one that stresses the production of knowledge that's important to the participants and involves a collaboration between the researcher and the participants. For the next slide, we see a person here looking at a book. I'm going to go ahead and assume this is a social worker who's getting some ideas about maybe how an intervention or a referral. Whenever social workers are reading research, and we do frequently, in order to get ideas about interventions or learn the needs of a client base, we are consumers. We are embodying the consumer role with relation to research. We're consuming research. Okay, that's That's one of the roles that social workers frequently play is consumer with respect to research. So again, whenever we're trying to figure out, what's an effective intervention or referral, because we're called upon by our code of ethics to do so, we might look to the research to find out that information. So we are in the role of consumer. Finally, we not only consume research, but as generalist social work practitioners, we oftentimes produce research. We are producers. In this way, in relationship to research, social workers can be both consumers and, in this case, producers. You're going to find that when you create a master's thesis or a dissertation at some point in your career, that you're producing knowledge for the field, and that's one of the roles we frequently use in our practices. So this was just a relatively brief slideshow that goes over the materials for the first section of your participation sheet for this week, the numbers 1 through 5. The remainder of the key terms in the box at the top of the sheet will be used in the subsequent sections of this sheet. I want to remind you that the third section of the sheet, which involves ethical considerations, is found in your book on pages 29 and 30. So that's just to kind of sum up. Go ahead and give me some feedback on this. We'll go over this sheet again and this particular section when we meet on Thursday. Take care.